Hello everybody and welcome to another hobby cheating video. And this week it's time to explore a new paint set. Let's get into it.
The strict technomancer that is Vincey V. Let us get to the technique and learn it, Vincey V.
Monument Hobbies was nice enough to send me their full set of expert paints. These are basically a reformulation of a heavy body acrylic paint. And so, much like all heavy body acrylics, they list things like the opacity, they list things like the pigments that are used, and as well as the finish. They also are a lot more sort of single pigment or just two pigments to formulate the colors. I thought we'd give them a full test today. So, let's not wait around. Let's see how these new things work. Let's head over to the desk and let's get painting. Okay, so this full set of paints, I'm going to try to use as many as possible. And for our mini today, we're going to use this little adorable goblin from Goblin Hobbies. This is from Casey and Brent. They have these wonderful goblin minis. I love painting them, and it's just a great chance to test things. So let's start out with painting the skin. We've got some good greens here we can use as well as a yellow, so let's experiment with that. I'm going to start by just laying down some of that deep green. Now, you'll see me painting the face here as we go along. Basically, I'm going to integrate more of the lighter green and then the yellow. But I want to talk about my initial impressions with these. So, as heavy body acrylics, I will say these are quite different than a lot of the other heavy body acrylics I've used before. There's clearly a difference in the formulation. This is definitely heavy body acrylics meets Monument paints. So they're still very, very creamy and thick as per most heavy body acrylics. But the difference here is they do have a formulation that makes them not quite as thick. Like they spread a little easier. Like all heavy body acrylics, they do tend to still incentivize you to use things like wet blending and or feathering, where you put some of the color down and then push it across the model. So as I'm working here, you're going to see that that is very much the case. Another thing with these heavy body acrylics is that they will tend to be a little more transparent writ large. Even those that say opaque or whatever, there are many semi-transparents in the lines as well as transparents, but even those that say opaque are going to be probably slightly more translucent than what we're normally used to with our hobby brand paints, because they don't have the extra whites or grays or things like that mixed in that a lot of other paints do to increase the opacity. So there we go. We worked on the face. Came out pretty well. I do like how these greens and yellows work. I will say in general, knowing the way the heavy bodies work, you do have to paint differently with these. If you try to use them in the same way you use your traditional layer paints, you probably honestly won't have the best experience. They will just be more transparent than you're used to, and it'll take more layers to sort of achieve the same result. If, however, you apply them rather thickly, feather them out, and then or wet blend with them, and then use them to glaze transitions, there you're going to have quite a good time. That's sort of the better workflow. So you kind of work thick and then work very thin, as opposed to working in traditional layers. All right, with that done, let's go ahead and tackle her jumpsuit that she's got on under her armor. Here we're going to use some of the, like a mix. You see the colors I use each time to make a sort of vaguely purple tone, basically. I mix in a little magenta into sort of Payne's gray and white. There we go. I do love this Payne's gray color. It is very dark blue-black. It's a great Payne's gray, wonderful for things like non-metallic and stuff like that. But here again, you can see how I was able to... The reason I say they're different from most heavy body acrylics is I didn't use any flow aid throughout this process. And I found I was able to, with just a modicum of water, get them flowing off the brush really cleanly. So when you're going for sort of blends, stipples, getting those nice lines in there, I did find this a lot easier than working with normal heavy body acrylics. So there we go. We got the jumpsuit all painted up. Okay. Next up is going to be a fairly major part of the figure, and that's the armor. We're going to use this series of sort of red tones here, as well as just a little bit of shadow tip. We're going to give her some bright red armor. a little word of warning as I'm going here. This will end up as a sort of clown fiesta just because I'm trying to use like every color in the set, and so it's really hard to balance those all out over the span of this mini. But at any rate, so I work with the reds. These I actually really like. So this is a bold pyrrole red. It's using a single pyrrole pigment. That tends to be the red I prefer. Mixed with the orange, it's really nice. It shadows really well. It's got very clean, saturated mixes. So much like Monument is known for having an extremely good bright red in their normal line, so too do we see an extremely powerful and solid red here. I actually found this had a really nice opacity, kind of straight out. I didn't need to actually work with this one too much. And so, frankly, I mean, they're more or less what they say on the bottle. The ones that are opaque with just a little bit of thinning and or, you know, some sort of feathering, you'll get a pretty opaque base coat. You might need to go kind of 2 layers or something like that sometimes, but for the most part, that's true. The ones that say semi-transparent or transparent, you know, those are going to be what they say on the bottle. So you're not going to use those and get extremely good coverage. You're going to be better off using those to shadow blend or as part of mixes with the higher opacity paints. Okay, so with the red, I work it up. You can see, though, I'm able to do really sharp edge highlights with the orange and stuff like that. Wasn't really a problem. I'm able to get that to a nice place. I'm able to glaze really easily. As high pigment density, heavy body acrylics, although, again, they've got that Monument mix to them. Like, I know it's weird, but like I've used a lot of heavy body acrylics, including art store heavy bodies, and they are much thicker. This clearly has other additives in it that are making it apply more smoothly, probably self-level more to some degree. Just the kinds of things you wouldn't see in your normal heavy body acrylics from the art store. Okay, so once the armor is done, we're going to go ahead and hit some of the black up just for some of these little like kind of other edges and pieces and stuff like that. And so I'm going to mix in some gray to do some quick edge highlights, that kind of thing. Here I just want to frame the armor, and what I really wanted to do is just test the black, because that's testing the black and testing the white is usually a good test of the range. Monument is known for having good whites. I found this white very good. Oftentimes with a lot of heavy body acrylics, the white is super thick, like crazy thick and very, it's great to work with, good for feathering. You've seen me use my classic Liquitex, Golden White in a lot of videos. But here, this is much smoother. Still thicker than the others in the range. That's definitely still true. But it has it does flow a lot easier, but I still found it feathered really well. I was able to mix it with the black quite easily. All these colors mix really well, being, like I said, single or sometimes 2, maybe 3 pigments. But they're very much more controlled. You know what you're getting into. With that black applied, good to go. I thought that framed up the red really nicely. Okay, so next up we want to test some of the browns. Here's those browns we're going to use. I'm going to do just some of the leather straps with that. Came out really quick and easy. You can see here I just do a base coat with the brown. I found this actually base coated really nice, the main brown here, the burnt umber. And then I add in a little bit of the sienna to just create, or just use the straight sienna, sorry, to just do some quick edges. I do mix a little bit of the white in to just hit some of the upper edges as well, create some scratches, hashes, and things like that. But mixing in just a little bit of water, no flow improver, anything like that, I was able to get it flowing where I was getting really sharp, thin, effective lines. So I like that. That was good. That was like excellent performance that I wanted to see, because one of the advantages to thicker paint in general is that you can always make paint thinner, but you can't really make paint thicker. And so when you want to use techniques like feathering or 2-brush blending or wet blending or stuff like that, or loaded brush, you do need some rather thick paint on that side of it. And so here, these did more or less meet my needs as far as that goes, while being more easily workable into traditional layers with something like our soft watercolor brushes. Oftentimes these natural hair brushes we use on traditional heavy bodies, they just kind of bend and fold. Here I was able to work with the paint a lot more smoothly and effectively. Okay, with that brown done, more or less then, I've got most of the figure in place. There we got a couple quick areas to hit. Let's do the hair. I'm going to try some of that purple, mix that in with just a little bit of the magenta. Again, I found the purple to be a really nice color. This is a classic dioxazine. I don't know how to say the word, but anyways, it's a classic dark purple. I love this color. Lots of paint brands do use this same pigment in their purple. It just forms a really nice base, and you can go a lot of places with it. So here I mixed in with just a little bit of magenta, and then layer up with some pinks. Again, this is another test of the sharp, thin lines. I found actually mixing in some of the white and then just, a little bit of thinning with water, and I was off to the races doing some nice, easy, thin lines with no challenge there. So again, I do kind of just place that down. You'll see at several points in time here where I do work, especially, over the course of this, where I worked and stippled and then smoothed or stuff like that. And I found myself doing the same thing here with the hair, where I'd put a little thin dot of the paint and then just kind of draw it out. And that I found to be highly effective, as it would just kind of naturally thin itself down with the moisture in the brush. Once the hair is all complete, I then just thin down some of the black and Payne's gray. I wanted to try it as just a simple glaze, like, can I use these to effectively slap chop? Because that suitcase has a really nice, that she's carrying had a really nice, like, zenithal to it. By the way, all that zenithal was done with a dry brush at the beginning. I didn't mention that, but it was. You can just do really nice, easy zenithals with a dry brush. Maybe that's a whole video in the future. Tell me in the comments below if you want to see a whole video dedicated to really, like, high-level dry brushing. Okay, anyways, so I just put a nice, kind of one thin slap chop layer over it, and actually it came out looking really good. Even super thin down, the pigment settled, self-leveled really easily, no coffee staining, very smooth. I thought this was an excellent test because I really thinned the living bejesus out of this Payne's Gray Black mix, and it came out really nice. So I do think there's a lot of potential here working with these things thick or thin. Okay, so in the end, I went through more or less the whole range. I think I missed like one yellow and one brown, so I apologize. But I did try to use as much as humanly possible on this goblin. My read on the range after painting this and a couple of other figures with it off camera is that if you're looking for like an artist heavy body acrylic, if that's what you expect, these are not for you. Because that's not what they are. These are, I really think, probably a hobbyist heavy body acrylic. There's not a lot of paints in the range, so obviously you are going to be mixing. You have to like mixing to do this. But I really did enjoy how they could work thick, wet blend, and feather well. I could move them into a layer because of whatever the additives that they mixed in were really easily. It did sometimes take, especially with some of the ones that are semi-transparent, and some of the opaque colors even, it did sometimes take 2 or 3 coats to build up to opacity. So that is a drawback, but expected when you're dealing more with single pigment paints. They're just often not going to be as opaque because they're lacking that mixture. And I found they glazed really well without any kind of coffee staining and applying nice, smooth, easy glazes. That was honestly the thing I was most happy with. These were great for making really efficient, effective glazes and just sort of building up the color quite naturally. One downside to them, this is kind of a minor point, but they do have a really insane top. Monument loves putting weird tops on these things. Like the opening on the paint is really wide, and so sometimes when you're trying to open it, you'll kind of accidentally squeeze the bottle, some paint will come up and out and kind of fill the top, and then you really do make a mess. So minor point, I was able to navigate around it and figure out how to stop doing that. Like you just barely squeeze the bottle to get like a little bit of paint out and put it on your palette. But the top, the opening is just like really, really big, which just means that like you can very easily squeeze a lot of paint out, which is kind of a downside. So be aware of that if you try these. They are definitely still Monument paints. If you leave them on the wet palette for a long time, they will go bad. They aren't nearly as hydrophilic as the regular Monument paints. So regular Monument paints break down fairly quickly over a wet palette, especially if you close the wet palette. They'll last fine over your session, but they don't work in the long run. These did not do that. These were not nearly as hydrophilic. I found I was able to leave them on the palette. I painted this girl over the course of a day. I did come back to finish a few touches overnight. And when I came back in the morning with the palette being closed, some of the paints had kind of broken up and cracked and done the traditional Monument thing. But they're much better on the wet palette in general as far as being more acting like more traditional paints than the regular Monument line. But overall, I really liked these. I'm going to be using them more, so you'll see them in more videos. If you're interested in kind of getting into heavy body acrylics, using things like wet blending, feathering, or want easier glazing, then I think these are something worth giving a try for sure. Now, full disclosure, of course, I do have an affiliate relationship with Monument. They sent me these at no cost, but I'm trying to, I'm going to give you my best review. I tried to point out both the good and the bad. If you're interested in picking them up, there is an affiliate link down there where you can grab them and get a discount on them, so do check that out. Here's how the little goblin girl came out in the end. I think she looks pretty cool, even if she has a bit of a clown fiesta, and I would not recommend this composition in your normal miniature painting, but here she is. All in all, this was a lot of fun to paint, and, hey, I hope you liked this. If you did, give it a like. Subscribe for additional hobby cheating. We have new videos here every Saturday. If you've got questions about these paints I didn't answer, drop those down in the comments below. I always answer every question asked. If you want to support the channel, like I said, there's those affiliate links down there. Check those out. It not only can you save money, but it really does support the channel. There's also the new games Uncle Adam and I make. So our newest game, Rain and Iron, is down there, as well as all of our other published titles if you're looking for your new Skirmish Obsession. There's also, of course, our Patreon, focused on review and feedback and taking your next step on your hobby journey. We'd love to have you as part of the community. As always, though, I thank you so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next time.